estimated wait time is approximately forever.
We cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. As you guys can tell, I'm doing a lot better in the health department because my cold is virtually gone, so that's good. But anyways, we do have a decent amount that we do need to get to tonight because the campaign season is ramping up, and that we know. And currently, Donald Trump still maintains a lead. Biden spent tens of millions of dollars, and has it moved the needle for him? No. So what are they going to do? They're going to get to, back to the drawing board, try and manufacture drama, manufacture these hoaxes because they have nothing. That's what these indictments are all about. Those are just manufactured hoaxes, spearheaded by a justice system that is completely broken. And now the media is doing what the media does best. They are lying. They're lying their asses off. Meanwhile, if they actually covered this administration fairly, Biden's approval rating probably would be about 10 to 20 points lower than it actually is because he's objectively been a worse president on all fronts than we saw with Bush 2. And Bush 2 was awful. I mean, his approval ratings were in the low to mid-20s. Even a good 50% of Republicans disapprove of him. And that number is actually probably higher now as the Republican Party has shifted and changed. But that's what it comes down to. This election is a tough fight. And it wouldn't be a tough fight at all if the media did their job properly, which they will not do. If the justice system would just be a normal first world country's justice system, but they're not. We're seeing what's going on right now. But honestly, is this going to spell the end for Donald Trump? Will it actually? Because come to think of it, this has got to be waking up a lot of people. They're banking on the American people being mindless sheep, being dumb, which in many cases they are, but they're really banking on this extreme level of gaslighting paying off. And it hasn't paid off according to any single metric that we've seen. You see Biden getting piss poor numbers in a lot of primary performances across the country. You're seeing Biden's approval rating below 40%. I mean, in 538 a few days ago, he hit his lowest approval rating of his entire presidency at 37.4%. And that was directly after his State of the Union, which the media was running cover for him. It was a mockery of the State of the Union. It was just a disgraceful speech that was filled with a bunch of nonsense, divisive nonsense, lies, etc., you name it. It was a campaign speech for his garbage campaign. And did it make a dent? No, it really didn't. And that's kind of where we're at. They're trying to manufacture lies because they can't beat Trump with the truth. You can't beat him on the economy. You can't beat him on foreign policy. You can't beat him on the border, definitely, of all things. Biden's going out there. He's apologizing to murderers of illegal aliens. That's not out of context. That's literally the case. He's apologizing to murderers of illegal aliens. He's also trying to say that Donald Trump is out of line for wanting to follow the law and deport these illegal aliens that enter the country. And he's trying to actually bank on that strategy paying off. He wants open borders. And to any of these so-called right-wingers or Republicans that sit there and counter-signal Trump or sit there and say, well, you know what? We don't want to vote for either one of these people. You're doing Biden a favor. You are aiding and abetting the destruction of our country. You are directly complicit with the destruction of our country. You're complicit because why? Because Trump says some things that you don't like. Who cares? Get over it. It doesn't matter. Your feelings don't exactly matter when the border of our country is being invaded by millions of people every year, when prices have gone up under this administration by 20+%, but wages have not risen with inflation whatsoever. These are serious problems that our country is facing, and so many people are turning a blind eye to it, as we know. But is the majority of this country going to do it? That's a question that we have yet to see if it's going to be answered. Donald Trump still leads the polling. He leads the polling nationally. He's polling higher than his 2020 vote share in terms of the raw vote percentage. He is winning every single swing state, whether you're talking about Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. He's sweeping the board so far. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're getting desperate. That's why they're indicting Trump. Biden cannot exactly be a competent president, that they know. He's not even going to try to be competent. He's not even going to try to rectify the problem. Now there's reports that Biden's getting angry himself behind the scenes, that if people are going up to him, his advisors are talking to him about how he's down by 6 percentage points in the polls in Georgia. He is throwing a temper tantrum. That's what he's doing. He's throwing a temper tantrum, a curse-filled tirade behind closed doors, apparently. That's what he's doing. And if that's the situation you're in, you're not in a good winning position. They're not in a winning position. They're not. Even though Biden has a cash advantage, even though Democrats have a turnout apparatus, it's not working in the primaries. It's not working whatsoever. I mean, and you could say, well, it's not contested. Why would they use it? But still, you have down ballot races, and there is a correlation. If Biden's getting blown out, even when give Trump, if you give Biden all of Haley's voters, and then you give Trump like the uncommitted, because obviously Biden's not going to win all the Haley voters, Trump's not going to win all the uncommitted, but Biden might have half of the Haley voters because they were always with Biden. They're not Republicans in many cases. But if you do that, still, Donald Trump wins big in North Carolina. Texas is not even close. Georgia was a complete and total blowout for Donald Trump. And, Donald Trump, obviously, there wasn't that much of a reason for people to vote at that point because Trump had won the nomination. Trump almost got as many votes on election day in that primary than Biden got by mail or on election day. So when you're looking at the big picture, it does seem as if Democrats are in some trouble. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're becoming unhinged. And you can't convince me that them becoming unhinged is going to really move the needle in their column. Because if you're going to be backed into a corner, if you are losing, if you are becoming unhinged, how does that really bolster your case when you're already disapproved of by a majority of the country, when your favorability rating is lower than Donald Trump's? It's never been the case. Hillary had a higher favorable rating than Trump when Trump won the election. Biden in 2020 had a 52% favorable rating because he stayed in the basement. That's not the case anymore. That is not the case. Donald Trump's favorables, yeah, he's underwater, but still, when people are asked, did you approve of Trump's job as president? He is in the positives, which was never the case during his presidency, except for like 2 days in the honeymoon period. So when you look at the big picture, Donald Trump is in a very good political position. I've been saying this for a long time. It doesn't mean the election's over. Doesn't mean the election's over, of course. We have a long way to go. But if the election were today, would Donald Trump win decisively? He absolutely would win decisively. And that is true. So I did put the poll up. I'm going to end the poll. It seems like 86% of you guys approve of the intro music, which, again, it is divisive. It's always been divisive ever since I've used the intro music, but I'm going to keep it, obviously. I was going to keep it regardless of the poll result, but it does confirm the fact that most people either like it or they're kind of ambivalent to it, but they're cool with it. So there you go. But still, Donald Trump in Ohio, what do they say? Trump goes out there and he attacks these killers of American citizens. Biden will apologize to them. Trump calls them animals, which is true. If in many cases, the way that these people murder is extremely gruesome. It's extremely vicious. We can't even talk about it on detail without getting completely demonetized because that is how, disgusting that these people are, especially even the way they do it's even disgusting for those circumstances. So he calls people who are criminal, illegal aliens, who murder people, he says, these are animals. He's like, I can't say it. They're going to get me in trouble for some reason, but it's true. And then he still, even though he prefaces it, this is what they run with. They say, Trump says some migrants are not people. Well, these migrants are literally murderers, and the ones who aren't still need to get the hell out of our country. They came in illegally. They, essentially penetrated our border unconsensually. That's literally what it is. These people are technically, they're all rapists in a way if they're doing that to our border in a roundabout manner. It's not politically correct to say it, but it's 100% true. And these people are being heralded as people who built this country by Joe Biden. When he's talking about the murderer who killed Laken Riley, he apologized to him because he said, I should not have used the word illegal. I should have called him undocumented. No, you should have called him a murderer is what you should have called him. That's the proper term to use. He's a murderous illegal alien, and you're apologizing out of political correctness because that's what Biden stands. I can't even believe he apologized. If he wanted to clarify and apologize for mispronouncing her name, maybe he would have scored some political points. But in turn, he does all this nonsense. It gets swept under the rug completely. Donald Trump accurately describes these people who are committing these heinous crimes in this country, and Donald Trump is the one that's under fire. Donald Trump is the one who's evil because he said that these murderers are not people. They don't act like people. People don't do this. Animals do that stuff. That's what it comes down to. Animals murder their own. People are supposed to take care of their own. That's what happens. But no, that's not what's really going on here. The media is completely running cover for Joe Biden. And also Donald Trump said regarding the automotive industry, he said it's going to be an entire bloodbath, and then he said it's going to be a bloodbath for the country. Now, the term bloodbath was put in the middle of two sentences referring to economic means. And if you look at Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it's a term that people use all the time to describe economic crises or just crises in general. Like you could say, oh, well, this guy, beat the other guy, or this team beat the other team in sports, whatever, you name it. That was a total bloodbath. This election is a bloodbath, some may say, if they're looking at the polls. The media said last week or 2 weeks ago, when you have all these RNC changes that were positive, that Donald Trump led a bloodbath against the RNC. So it's a term that people use frequently, especially referring to like economic crises. And that's what Trump predicted. But still, they're running with it as, oh, Donald Trump is evil. He is going out there and he is inciting violence. Where in reality, you're talking about Biden essentially saying, we don't have any democracy. We don't have a country. If Trump's going to win, whatever. Trump is a threat to the country. Fear-mongering, that's fine. That is kind of something that is promoted by these people. Donald Trump accurately going out there describing an economic situation is a problem, and they're trying to twist his words about it. And he could have used any term. They would have found some other thing he said. That's what this really is. You can't expect, oh, well, he shouldn't use the word anyways, knowing that they would take it out of context. That's what they're going to say. That's what these neocons will typically say. And it doesn't matter what you say, because they're still going to find some problem with something. And that's literally what they did. And you have to tell it like it is. You can't go out there and worry about what the media is going to say about you. If they're going to be dishonest, they're going to be dishonest. And I tell you something, it doesn't matter who the nominee is. If they were actually a threat to Biden, they would be doing the same thing. They've done the same thing. I mean, when DeSantis was running for governor, they did the same thing. Like, why would you expect it to be any different? If Donald Trump used it, it's going to be a travesty, it's going to be a tragedy, it's going to be a disaster. Like, you really expect him to have to toe the line? He's not allowed to use certain words now? That's the problem, really? Like, these people need to get over themselves, seriously. All they're doing is running cover for Biden, apologizing for Biden, apologizing for the media for lying, apologizing to their supposed political enemies. That's what they're apologizing for. These people are scum. These people need to be defeated in November. Donald Trump is right. The media is the enemy of the people. They are, because they're literally going out there and they're trying to essentially just lie to the people in order for the people to, then be emotionally trapped into voting against their own interests, because that's exactly what you're seeing here. This administration has not worked out for anybody under any circumstance. No, the economy's not recovering. You can look at the economic numbers. It's extremely stagnant when you look below the surface. That is true. You saw wages rising under Trump, not exactly rising now. You saw native-born Americans seeing an increase in employment under Trump. You actually see a net negative under Biden when you take out the whole COVID economic recovery, because a lot of those numbers are inflated. A lot of that was temporary losses that were always going to, be gotten back. And under Donald Trump, in the last few months of his presidency, you saw the same thing happen, because when states were starting to reopen, and even a little bit before that, people were going back to work. But still, the economy is not fully recovered from that. And in many cases, is getting worse. People can't afford things. You talk about mortgage rates. They're extremely out of control. People can't afford to buy homes right now. The economy is in complete and total shambles. The border is completely wide open due to things and actions that Joe Biden himself directly did that had a direct impact on the border, because he got rid of Trump's policy. And now he's trying to say Republicans are the problem because they're not passing some border bill that would basically give amnesty to a lot of these illegal aliens, when a majority of Americans want these people to be sent back, for one. And for two, on top of it, it's like the bill wouldn't even do anything to stop the problem. If anything, it would cause a greater surge to the border, because they'd realize this isn't doing anything. You get a few hundred judges that would work on maybe like 1,000 cases a year total, which what does that accomplish? You maybe deport an extra 10,000 people in exchange for all these people having a path to citizenship? I mean, absolutely not. That bill would not have solved the problem whatsoever. Even if it would have been passed, it would not have even been a win for Joe Biden whatsoever. Just like the whole Inflation Reduction Act hasn't really reduced inflation substantially. You're not having deflation, which is the problem, and you're also not having wages rise to the level of inflation. That's another problem that a lot of Americans are dealing with right now. But the Biden administration, they're doubling down. Their campaign is entirely being run on orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. I'm surprised they're not even leaning into the abortion thing as much as they possibly could, because Biden's best bet would be making this a one-issue election as much as possible, or making abortion a hot-button issue. Still, Donald Trump is somebody who is not really seen as all that extreme on the issue. I don't think it would, work for Biden necessarily as much as some Democrats might think it would, but still, it'd probably be a little bit better than what they're doing now. They're banking on people being stupid. They're banking on people not being able to do their research. It's the same thing with, he's been indicted all these many times. And it's like, look at the indictments. Go through every single one, and then look at the law and look at things objectively. Donald Trump would not be found guilty on any of those. Now it's 88 counts. They say 91 still. They threw several counts away in the Georgia case, but it's not really convenient for these people to bring it up. And it should, all the indictment counts should just be thrown out completely. And I think a lot of them actually will be. And we're possibly not even going to see any trials until after the election, because Trump is doing his best job to delay a lot of these trials, and that we know. And even if he does get convicted, I'm not really convinced it would move the needle. Every indictment he's gotten, his numbers have gone up. I'm not just talking about the primary, but I'm also talking about against Biden. And I feel like it would make a lot of people angry. It would mobilize a lot of people to get out there and, volunteer, help out. I think I'm going to volunteer at this point, not just like what I'm doing with this channel, but I think I actually will try to do something with the campaign, because everybody needs to have their hands on deck for this. If you have time and you are wasting your time and you could be getting involved, you could be volunteering, you are doing a disservice. If you are not getting 5 to 10 people that you know out to the polls that you know probably would not have voted, you are doing an absolute disservice to the country in that process. Now, not everybody can get involved. I understand you have some people who are working long hours. I get that. You have some people who are retired and probably not in the best physical shape, but we need as many people volunteering as we possibly can, because we need to win this thing. I mean, we're not going to have a country. We don't even have a country. We have a third world communist country. We have a wide open border. You can't afford anything nowadays. The media lies to the American people. It's just, in the pocket of this administration. They're gaslighting the people as much as they possibly can. This is not a serious country. This is not a country anymore. We don't even have a country. If Biden wins, it's going to give him the mandate to do a whole lot worse to this country. That's what it's going to do, which is why we need to keep pushing back against this nonsense. We have a lot of momentum. We do. I mean, Trump is leading in the polls by 2 points. I mean, it's been that way, give or take, for a while. Sometimes he's a little bit below 2. Sometimes he's risen up to like a 3-point lead, even a 4-point lead a little bit there in early 2024. But you're looking at the numbers. They're not all, set in stone. Some people will say polls are meaningless. They're not meaningless. They've never been meaningless. I've never said they've been meaningless. They're not everything. Sometimes they can be off, but they do show the pulse of the country as an indicator, probably better than any other indicator we have until maybe we start getting some turnout data. But even then, early voting data is not all that accurate either. But still, you're looking at the polls. Trump is leading the polls. That is a very, very, very good thing that we see, and it's important to take all of this into account as well. But he's been 4 times indicted. He's been the best political position of his career. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're indicting him in the first place. They're trying to convict him. They are lying their asses off in the media. They are trying to gaslight the American people in the most shameless way possible. They don't even have any shame about this. There's not like a record. They used to try and like fact check him and try to say, well, his stats are off here and there. Now they just blatantly lie. That's what they try to do. Oh, Trump calls for this. It's fear mongering. Is this going to work? Because people know what a Trump presidency's been like. They also know what a Biden presidency has also been like, and they overwhelmingly favor the Trump presidency. No amount of barrage of Biden advertisements or whatever is going to change that. It's not going to move that needle. It's not. Now, you could say that he has a good get out the vote operation, but when people are less approving of you, does that exactly matter? I mean, Hillary Clinton, how many times did we hear about, oh, well, she's got the Democrat turnout machine in her corner? How did that exactly work out for her? How did outspending Trump 3.5 to 1 work out for her? Biden's more unpopular than Hillary Clinton. I honestly think he's at a point where he's becoming more unpalatable, politically speaking, than Hillary Clinton. And Donald Trump's favorable rating is much higher than it was in 2016. Even compared to 2020, he's in relatively good standing overall in terms of his personal favorable rating. And his job approval rating in retrospect is actually higher than 2020. They will never attack Trump on his record as president because they have nothing to attack him on. Everything is fear-mongering. Meanwhile, Biden has a lot to be attacked on. And I think Trump needs to stay on message. I'm not saying he's not. He's being taken out of context a lot on social media because, you're not going to see clips of him being shared that are actually hard-hitting against Biden as much because a lot of the news media accounts, even on the right, are ignoring it, even though I think that the latter has come around. And you're seeing that with even some of the original DeSantis supporters, at least in terms of like the right-wing media sphere. The big names are on board. Now, you have a lot of these, anonymous accounts who are not on board, who I suspect to be still either A, running a shadow campaign for him, or B, just being bad faith assets. But even so, they don't have any impact on reality. They don't represent the American people. Twitter is not real life. If election Twitter dictated elections, Dr. Oz would have easily won in Pennsylvania. You would have seen vastly different election results in 2022 and 2020, arguably, but that's not exactly how this works. And you will see that unravel in real time. And you already see it in these primaries. How many holdover votes does DeSantis get in a given state? Maybe 1% of the vote? How many of those voters just don't even know he dropped out? Like, that's another question. A lot of them probably will vote for Trump regardless, so it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. But you're looking at it, and Donald Trump is in a very good spot right now, which is why they're lying, which is why they're doing this. So we are going to get to the Super Chats. We've been going for 27 minutes. Also, the other thing that I did want to touch base on was the fact that Mike Pence is not endorsing Donald Trump. He said he's not voting for Biden, but he's not endorsing Trump. And it's just laughable. The guy's fallen from grace. I don't really think he ever was all that good. I think that, 2016 VP pick, I thought it was an understandable choice because Trump did kind of have to placate a lot of those Ted Cruz type of voters in the primary. And in order to get them on board, he was able to do so by picking somebody like Mike Pence. He was from, the Rust Belt, and he had an evangelical appeal, even though Indiana's not a competitive state, and he wasn't even all that popular in Indiana to begin with. But still, you look at it, and it's just like, the guy goes out there and he says on the campaign trail that what happens in American cities is, quote unquote, not of his concern. And if somebody like that chooses not to endorse you, I feel like that's a good thing. I feel like it's actually a good thing that all the weakest Republicans that nobody likes are the same people that are, unwilling to support Trump. I think it's a good thing. I don't think Mike Pence has any pull. He's not somebody who's like a major power player with a ridiculous amount of influence to the point where if he doesn't support Trump, he's not endorsing him, whatever. I mean, his political career is going to be over. You're not supporting the nominee. That's usually the way that it goes. Now, do I think he will eventually come out and give a half-assed endorsement for Trump? Probably, I think Nikki Haley arguably will do the same. Do I care? No. Am I going to reject endorsements of people? No, I think that's dumb as well. But still, when you look at it, it's like these people are clowns. They shouldn't be anywhere near the campaign trail whatsoever. They're just neocons. They're largely just rhinos. In the case of Haley, she definitely is, and Pence is definitely a neocon who says he doesn't care what happens in this country. He cares about what happens overseas. He said that populism is evil, and he said even Ron DeSantis was too much of a populist for him to support in a general election. And it's funny because these people also all signed the pledge that they would support Trump. Pence even raised his hand and said he would support Trump if Trump was convicted of a crime. But now he's changing his tune. Even from, mid-2023, mid to late 2023 is changing his tune. So there's that. So we have 1,500 live viewers in chat. Anyways, guys, make sure you like the stream down below. Also, subscribe to the channel. We are knocking on the door of 174,000 subscribers. Everybody in chat who's not subscribed, you guys need to subscribe. You can use the live chat if you do subscribe. Make sure you hit the like button. Let's get to 1,000 likes. Let's get it up there. And also hit that subscribe button as well. But we have super chats we have to get to. Explorer Bears has said 9/11 never happened. Bush would have lost in 2004. It's entirely possible. His approval rating was very high for much of his first term because of that. Now, would all the economic turmoil that was seen in that first term have been at the same level if it wasn't for 9/11? That's a whole nother debate, but still largely it is the case. Also, shout out to Jacqueline B for sending 20 on Cashapp. If you guys would like to super chat on Cashapp or support the channel and bypass the platform fees, you guys are more than welcome to. But still, we have Mike M for 10 says, why were the Democrats offended when Biden called a criminal alien who allegedly killed an American woman illegal during the State of the Union? I don't understand Biden apologizing either, because these people are sick in many cases. Now, are all Democrat voters in the country? I mean, some of them just don't pay attention to this kind of stuff or turn a blind eye to it because they don't understand what's going on, because they buy the narrative. But a lot of these people who have the capability to understand what's going on don't understand what's going on and then, pile on and say Biden is evil for apologizing to somebody who took the life of an American citizen and who should never have been allowed in this country in illegal, which is exactly what he is. It's a disgrace. It's a complete and total disgrace. Pendoc says, why did Trump compare DeSantis to ISIS yesterday? Okay, this is another hoax perpetrated mainly by the neo-never-Trumpers on Twitter who, like I said, don't really represent a big share of the electorate because they don't exist in real life. He didn't compare him to ISIS. He didn't even mention DeSantis by name. He basically said, in the primaries, I took out my opponent, which it was probably referring to Ron DeSantis, but he said that he hit him high, he hit him low, just like he took out ISIS. And people are saying he's comparing DeSantis to ISIS. It's like, first of all, who gives a shit? Like, that's what Trump said, and I agree. Why do you care so much? He's just out there just explaining that he's a strong candidate. Trump has always said, on the campaign trail in 2016, I took out 17 other Republicans. What's different about this? He took out his opponents, and he takes them out. He hit them the way he hit ISIS. One of Donald Trump's biggest accomplishments during his presidency was the fact that he took out ISIS. So if you want to sit up here and say, well, that's a bad thing that he's comparing him to ISIS, he's not saying he's like ISIS. He's saying he takes out his opponents the way that he takes out ISIS, which was a complete and total accomplishment during Donald Trump's presidency, and it's not talked about enough, but it's 100% true. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. As time goes on, he's not going to be mentioning his primary opponents, mainly because they're just so irrelevant, and we got to focus on defeating Joe Biden, and that we know. Alex says, F the media. They fear MAGA. They do. They can't even define it. It's fear-mongering. We hear, these evil MAGA Republicans. Well, can you define MAGA Republican? Why are you using that as a dirty word? MAGA. We want to make America great again. We want to secure our borders. We want to bring our troops home. We want to bring back manufacturing. We want to, lower the level of immigration, focus on American citizens first. How are these extreme policies? These are common sense policies, is exactly what they are. American Spiritual Politics says, hey, Rep, great job as always. Well, thank you. Will this be a call-in next week? I think I will be doing a call-in stream, not today. Explorer Bear says, Trump loses, then the suburbs will become shithole slums. Well, they already are becoming shitholes in many cases. I mean, a lot of it is not just even in some places, well, these voters are voting Democrat. It's that Democrat voters are moving into these places in many cases. Some of it is like, younger population, more college-educated millennials, but also low-income housing being built, etc. It is a problem. Trump did talk about it in 2020 quite a bit, actually. Carl Bruss says, say Biden works his magic. Is there any coming back from this? I still think we haven't recovered from the second Obama term. Well, culturally, we have not recovered from the second Obama term. I mean, you go back to 2012, even the average, liberals would be considered culturally right in many aspects, not necessarily on every issue, but if you're talking about the woke stuff and everything like that, I don't think we've recovered from the second Obama term in that regard. Economically speaking, that's a whole nother story. But still, you did have a stagnant economy. I don't think the problems with the economy just started with Obama. He definitely didn't help. He had a very slow recovery. But still, culturally speaking, he did everything he could do. He had a real opportunity to, unite the country, buck his party. Did he decide to do that? No. He, towed the line to the left's agenda because that's exactly who he is. He's not a unifier. The media tried to pass him off as one, but nobody bought it. And you could look at just the clear cultural metrics and political divide during his 2 terms, and you could see that. It got a lot worse in his second term, and it's about to get a lot worse in a Biden second term too. Make no mistake about it. Yeah, Republicans do probably win the Senate. They probably do even hold the House, even in a narrow Biden victory. But we got to fight like hell. You can't say it's taken for granted. I don't like people saying, oh, well, Trump can't win. They're just going to do it again. Or I don't like people saying, oh, well, Trump's going to win in a landslide either. I don't think that either are the right way to view the election. It's going to be a close election regardless. And we can't act like we're 10 points ahead. Even if we are, we can't act like it. You can't leave anything for granted. Democrats didn't just, cave when they knew they were struggling in 2022. They mobilized. 2020, they were ahead in the polls. Did that exactly mean that they had to, they had to change a lot of different things to win even? And that we know on many fronts. Utah Pressure Washing and Exterior Cleaning LLC for 5, so just donating because I recently discovered the channel and I think you're doing great stuff. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. We have a lot of new people here. I've noticed that. I see it in the live chats. My streams now are getting, even on a stream on Sunday, no election going on, late last-minute stream, we're pulling 1,500 live viewers. That would have been unheard of even a year ago, especially because we have a long way to go before the election. We're in March, and we're probably going to have our best month view-wise of the entire channel's history. And we've got 8 months to go before the election, so you guys can pat yourselves on the back for that. As well, because you guys have been the ones, just liking the videos, commenting, helping boost everything in the algorithm, being at these streams, etc. Cameron Campbell says, did Kennedy get enough supporters to be on the debate stage, or is that a myth? He's polling in the 3-way race at 15 on the dot. In the 5-way race, he's at 12%, and in the 2-way race, obviously, he's polling at 0 because he's not included. So could he be on the debate stage? Well, he's going to have to gain traction because usually third-party candidates dip in the polls, and probably they would not have him attend the debate, even if he's at 15 in the three-way average, just because I don't think they typically have a bias towards third-party candidates. Like Gary Johnson was about, nearing 15% in the margin of error. They didn't use that as they didn't really use that as concrete evidence for it. So I think it is kind of a distraction overall. Do I think that RFK Jr. hurts Biden more than Trump? Yeah, but still, him at the debate stage, I think Trump against Biden, like that's kind of what I think would give Trump a leg up more so than not. Utah Pressure Washing and Exterior Cleaning LLC says, Christ is king. Christ is indeed king. This is true. This is fact-checked by real American patriots. The Sandwich Man says, thoughts on the Mark Robinson scandals? I don't care. This guy said something on Facebook 10 years ago. He kind of said that he walks it back. He apologizes, whatever. Move on. A lot of people knew all this stuff ahead of 2020. He was outspent 11-1. All the ads were about his Facebook posts. He won by 3 points. Now, is it going to be a very close race? Absolutely. North Carolina has elected, I think, one Republican governor going back to, I don't know, you'd have to go way, way back. I think you'd have to go back to the 90s, North Carolina governors. Because, down ballot, North Carolina is a little bit of a different state. They vote red at the top of the ticket. It's a mixed bag down ballot. That would be the case regardless if you put up any of these other Republicans in North Carolina. Mark Robinson's not a weak candidate in and of himself just because he has some baggage. He also has a lot of good things going for him. Even his attack ads where they play him with his baritone voice and act like they're dunking on him. It's like, you make me like the guy more. You don't make me like the guy less. And even if he does have a few, I guess you would say, positions that are not in line with the average independent voter in terms of the electorate, still, people are more likely to vote for him and forgive something he says about abortion, which his record isn't like Mastriano or Dixon level. But in terms of we need a stricter ban in the state, he's like a black preacher with a baritone voice. If he says that optically plays out a lot better than, somebody like Mastriano or a Tudor Dixon or back in the day, you had the guy that ran for Senate in Indiana in 2012, Todd Akin in Missouri, you name it, etc. So there's that. Now, also, I looked it up. You'd have to go back to 1988. That's the last time a Republican won the governorship, with the sole exception of Pat McCrory, who ran against somebody who was an awful candidate. Complete and total train wreck of a candidate. If Bev Perdue ran for re-election, she probably, arguably, would have won. Arguably. It's not a sure thing. I didn't know her approval rating, but just judging based off of what's going on, it probably would be. Exactly says, do you actually believe RFK Jr. will get 6 to 8% of the popular vote like many are projecting? Keep it up, Rep. Well, I don't think he'll get 6 to 8%. I think he'll probably actually get less than 5%, but I think that will dictate some potential results. Because if he's getting that in Arizona, and he's taking 2-1 away from Biden in Arizona, Trump is going to win Arizona. He's going to win Georgia. He's got a better shot in Michigan, a better shot in Pennsylvania, if that's all true, because Trump's base is more loyal. And you're not really cracking into Trump's base. The only people who are maybe not so loyal are the more establishment Republicans. They're not going to vote for Biden probably or RFK Jr., especially now that RFK Jr. is picking a progressive to be his running mate. Because what that is doing is it is allowing him to lean more into that vote share than lean into Trump's vote share. If he picks Aaron Rodgers, like so many people were talking about, he's, even though he has some left-wing positions, he's seen as culturally right-wing. He's, going out there talking about Epstein's client list. He's going out there and he's talking about how he opposes the jab. Maybe then you'd be seeing him pull away more voters from Trump in that instance. But because he's not, I don't really think he's going to hurt Trump. I think he's going to hurt Biden. Especially because he's a leftist. He is a leftist. You look at him on the environment. You look at him on guns. You look at him on abortion. You look at him on the economy, healthcare, everything. RFK Jr. is a die-in-the-wool leftist who maintains the, there used to be a dissident left back in the day, 20 years ago, that kind of did oppose vaccines and vaccine mandates, and he happens to still fall into that. He happens to still kind of be more dovish compared to Biden in foreign policy. That's it. But if anything, I don't think that's taking votes away from Trump, because Trump voters are rather, even if they like RFK Jr. on some things, they're going to vote for the guy with the chance to win. Meanwhile, the people that just don't like both, those are the people that RFK Jr. might have as like a protest vote. A lot of those people probably don't even care about his political positions. They're just voting based on vibes. So Beyond Glory says, my phone is ringing off the hook trying to give me money for government programs. Biden is buying votes. Yeah, he is. Well, I don't know what that has to refer to. Those could possibly just be scams, to be honest. But yeah, I think he is going to try to buy votes. Is it going to work? Like, if you're trying to buy out the student loan debt of gender studies majors, how is that going to play out well in Pennsylvania when you're going to have your steel workers have to foot the bill for that in one way or another? You think that's going to be a winning issue if Republicans play their cards right? I mean, the proportion of the electorate that went to college is not as high as the portion of the electorate who didn't go to college. I don't think a lot of people are going to want to pay for that, especially because they're past the age, if they're voting, in most cases, of even going to college. So it's not like they're getting a reward for it. Byron8899 says, what are your opinion of Tyson Foods laying off 1,200 Americans and planning to hire 40,000 migrants? Desperate Trump is leading the polls. Well, I feel like that's just a rallying cry for Donald Trump in a roundabout way, because if they're firing Americans, which they've been, and hiring illegals, that's where the job growth is. I mean, you could pull this up. All the jobs created in this country that are net, that are new jobs, have been created. They're part-time jobs. B, they're not for native-born Americans. So this administration's a disaster. I don't know how anybody could possibly, in good faith, go out there and vote for this guy. That's why they're doing this. And they're banking on the strategy working. This is their insurance policy. And they know Trump's got a good shot to win. That's why they're going out there and passing bills limiting the president's power on some foreign policy things. Oh, they can't pull out of NATO. They can't do X, Y, and Z. So they're doing that. They're trying to already sabotage a second Trump term. They're fear-mongering about Trump. They're fear-mongering about Project 2025 as well, because Trump actually has a plan this time to drain the swamp and institute policy that's relatively mundane and conservative, but is much needed in this country. So that's that. Easy the Legendary says, Owen Schroyer, man on the street content back then is proof of how terrible our media is. He would give people simple facts and he gets assaulted for it. Yeah, I mean, that was some of the first political content on YouTube I saw. It's kind of what made me a Trump supporter back in like April of 2016. I mean, before that, I was just, I would say I leaned right. I was just more, disaffected from politics or distant from it. That wasn't like my main hobby until 2016 happened. And it's become a chore at times, but not anymore. It's not become a chore now, because now I'm amped up. I'm hyped about this election because I'm seeing what's going on in this country. I'm seeing we have a real shot to win, and watching how desperate these lunatics are. I want to see how much their desperation moves the needle. I really do. Because so far it's worked against them. The indictments have even worked against them. I was laughed at when I said Trump getting indicted will help him in the polls against Biden. And what happened? Trump surged in the polls as he was being indicted against Biden. So there's that. Let's see. We have Based Cat saying, why do shitlibs always bring up the keys? Because Alan Lichtman is a liberal and he is interpreting the election the way that he wants to. That's what he's doing. You can't look at this country and say the economy's in good shape and that Biden should get both economic keys when you actually dive beneath the surface level. I don't think the economy even hurt Trump in 2020 because the keys said that it was hurting him. Like, most Americans approved of his job in the economy. That's what matters. And approval ratings and polls are a far more accurate indicator than the 13 keys, which have been accurate but are just, general indicators. Like, oh, the economy, oh, you're an incumbent. Like, being an incumbent is not going to help you if you are such a shitty incumbent. Does it give you an advantage in terms of your ability to make policy change that might make you more popular? Maybe. But that's just going to raise your approval rating. Approval rating matters far more. Mike M says the trans issue and open border connected. Sterilized Americans being replaced by illegals who give their children birthright citizenship. I wouldn't say they're identically connected. I think that it's a little bit deeper than that. I mean, they're both issues. They're both a part of the regime's agenda. Make no mistake about it. They're both industries that we know. I mean, a lot of these companies, these pharmaceutical companies, benefit off of people transitioning. That's why they're promoting it in part. It's a lot of it is astroturfed. The open border, in a similar way, you could say it gives the Democrats more votes. It gives the corporations cheaper labor. I mean, it's a disaster. It's partially why wages haven't rose. Like, seriously, there's no way you could justify anything that's happened over the past 4 years as something good. Biden doesn't have any accomplishments. You want to talk about the spending bills as accomplishments? That all they do is probably contribute to the inflation problem? And like, you look in those bills, liberal pork. How much of the infrastructure bill went to actual infrastructure? Not even 15%. The Inflation Reduction Act did not reduce inflation single-handedly. If anything, it technically made it worse. And there was a lot of liberal pork in that as well. So you're looking at it and it's a problem. Wages are not rising. Inflation has gone down, but that's like saying, well, the fat guy stopped gaining weight at the level that he was gaining weight at. And you could say, well, technically you're going to gain weight regardless as long as you're like working out, putting on muscle. But we're not putting on muscle. We're just gaining weight. You're just gaining weight slower. Prices have gone up under this administration by 20% overall. It's ridiculous. Even gas, it was going down for a while. Now it's kind of going up a little bit. I mean, the gas prices aren't ridiculous right now, but they're not that good. And the forecast that even has Biden winning, Moody's Analytics says that gas is likely going to go up another 30 or 40 cents by November, which could be wrong. I mean, I don't think Biden's going to win. Their election map is weird, too. They have Trump winning Arizona. He's winning Arizona. He's probably winning the election. So let's see. Timbo Slice for 10 says, hey, Rep, dropping a 10 because I love your content. Glad I found you. Well, thank you. I know 2024 is incredibly important right now, but are there any early predictions for 2028 Republican candidates? Basically what I've been saying, I mean, you know, it's probably, you'll see probably Vivek try again. DeSantis is going to try again, and I think he's going to do even worse this time because he's going to be more irrelevant, and people have seen him at the national stage kind of bust a little bit. He's a bust. And then you look at people like J.D. Vance, Josh Hawley, maybe Tucker Carlson. Some of these people could throw their hats in the ring as well. It's interesting. So we don't know who it's going to be. I'm sure the establishment is going to have their candidates. Glenn Youngkin probably is going to try and run in 2028 as well. And I feel like if there's going to be any establishment-friendly candidate that wins the nomination, I feel like he'd be the best bet for them. But even then, I think he's a little bit overrated as well. But he does come across as a nice guy, whether I think he's right about everything or not, which I think that some people overrate him just because he's governor of a blue state. So Scott B says, good evening. What's the likelihood of a black swan being used to interfere with the election? For example, a new pandemic, emergency war powers, etc. Well, in terms of a new pandemic, we're kind of running out of time. And if they try to pull what they pulled before, it's not a winning issue for them. Most Americans now know that even if they initially supported lockdowns and things like that, they oppose them ridiculously at this point. The point where it's unlikely that they would be able to, kind of use that to their advantage. Now, I think you're seeing what they're trying to do. They're trying to use the media. They're trying to use their institutions that they have to attack Trump 24/7. But they have such TDS to the point where normal people are looking at this. If they do their research a little bit, it bounces off. And polls are not always accurate. It's true. We know that. But they usually, A, don't underestimate Trump. And B, Trump has risen in the polls. His numbers are going up. And, maybe Biden does gain a little bit here and there. It's probably going to bounce back for Trump. Trump hasn't trailed in the polls since September 11th, 2023. He's been up in the polls for 1, 2, 3, 4. You go October, November, December, January, February, March. He's been up in the polls for 6 months. He was never up in the polls at all in 2020. He led the polls for maybe, I think, a combined 6-7 days in 2016. So it's like he's up for 6 months. I don't know. I feel like something is happening. Something I think is happening. I feel like you might have an upset victory for Trump again. And I say upset even though he's favored because I feel like so many people just don't believe he can win. And I think that he can. But there's even people that vote for him, people probably in live chat, they will maybe wish cast, but deep down they will say, we've been hurt so many times. I'll vote for Trump. I'll volunteer. I just don't know if it's going to happen. But I still think that when he wins, if he does win, it's going to feel like an upset victory, even if people don't see it as such. Because you look at everything they've thrown at this guy over the last 9 years, it's insane what's going on. If he wins at this point, even though technically he's in the strongest position, it'll feel very, very resilient. It will. Dustin Carner says, how much will Trump rebound with young college males? New data seems to indicate that young high school or college males are trending to the right while girls are going left. Well, I think he gains some. I think he gains some with younger voters overall. Is it going to be a ridiculous amount? No. I think Biden's going to have a turnout issue. I think that you might see people like Cornel West, Jill Stein do very well with the whole ceasefire crowd as well, which is going to help Trump out a lot. Exactly, says many pollsters were close in 22. Do you believe they figured out their Trump-era errors, or are we going to see the same understating of Trump? Well, technically the polls in many states overestimated Republicans, but here's the deal. A lot of those polls in the final aggregate were taken right before Election Day, right-leaning pollsters to begin with, and on top of that, the polls that were taken from like New York Times, Fox News, nationally, that pollster, you name it, CBS, they fell out of the aggregate. And on top of that, the polls that were like most accurate were taken in like September, October, kind of before early voting started. So maybe people who voted early just answered polls less. I feel like that might be the case. Their models may have been off in a few places. So, I don't know what the polls are going to show. I'm more inclined to believe they're accurate with Trump on the ballot. Any polls that have been wrong for the primary have been taken in open primaries. That we know. Haley saw an unexpected boost from Democrats and left-leaning independents crossing over, and it benefited benefited Haley in terms of the final margin compared to the polls. Do I think that Trump is really in dire straits with Haley voters like they say? Probably not. But you're looking at it, and it's just like, yeah, the polls in the primaries haven't been that inaccurate. Trump's still setting records for turnout in the states that Haley outperformed the polls the most, like New Hampshire. He still got a record of all-time votes. Even in Vermont, he broke his 2020 total, I believe, and Haley won the state by, a couple thousand Democrat voters, Bernie bros, basically. But you know what? Donald Trump still broke his record, and he kept her below 50%. And still got 8 out of the state's 17 delegates. So Haley only got 1 delegate extra than Trump in Vermont, despite that being her victory state. It's pretty funny. So let's see. Hawkster, thank you for the 1. Based Cat says even Shank is saying they need to worry about polls. I mean, they do. This is a problem. And the more they act like this, I feel like the more it hurts them. The more it's hurting them in the polls because they're just lying. Oh, the problem is Trump is calling illegal alien murderers animals. Good. That makes me more likely to vote for him. Why would that make you less likely to vote for somebody? Trump knows murder is wrong. Biden apparently apologizes to these people and says that they built the country. So Trump is the one that supposedly is inciting violence. Biden's incited the border crisis, which has in turn incited more violence and drugs, etc., to pour into our country. Biden is the problem. Marilyn Degatti 83 says, do you think the TikTok bill will be struck down? Maybe. Banning a website or an app is in my opinion, I think you could justify some things. I think you could justify banning pornography. I even think you could justify limits on social media to a certain extent. You have to be careful about how you do that, though. But when it comes down to this bill's a Trojan horse to ban speech on other platforms. It really is. I don't like TikTok. I think TikTok is a disaster. I think the censorship on TikTok is a big problem. It puts out a lot of degeneracy to the youth in a not so good manner. You don't even see that on YouTube Shorts at that level. But still, you look at TikTok, I don't support it. But this ban, I feel like, is dangerous. I think this ban is dangerous. And what it could do is it could lead to Rumble being banned. It could lead to a lot of these other social networks being banned, X being banned, if they don't do certain speech policing, which we don't need to do that. We need free speech. This is the new public square, essentially. You can't ban people from these major platforms and expect the discourse to kind of remain in a healthy level. What it's going to do is it's going to cause just the Overton window to continue to shift to the left, and a lot of people are going to get very angry and agitated as well as a result. And it's not a good thing for the country. So let's see. Dustin Carner says, does Alaska repeal ranked choice voting? What margin does Alaska go red by? I think Alaska goes red by like 12 points, possibly even by more. And I think they could repeal ranked choice voting. It just depends. Ben Sinek says, I think polls can be wonky due to not predicting turnout accurately. Trump gets voters out, so that is why they underestimate him. Well, what the polls did up until the midterms is they were actually underestimating Republicans until September in a lot of the states. And I think in like mid-October, that's when they were the most accurate, when early voting was starting. So I think they can be off in predicting turnout. I think that's true. Nationally, the polls are usually accurate, believe it or not. They've been accurate. 2020, I think, was the lone exception. And I think they might be underestimating Biden. They could be, nationally, by a little bit. But still, Trump could lose the popular vote by, 3, 4, and still win the election in the Electoral College. So, maybe I think the polls probably are around accurate right now. I think Trump by 2, I could see that popular vote result. Just depends on the third-party vote share. I think Trump is going to get around 47%, 48%. Biden could get 46%. Well, Trump wins by 2. There you go. So, yeah, that's it for Super Chats right now. But if you guys want to, feel free to send in more Super Chats. We could take more Super Chats as well. We're not going to end the stream right now. We're an hour in. We'll go for another 20, possibly even 30 minutes. It depends. If you guys want me to go on, you guys got to keep the Super Chats coming. But if not, that's okay. I know it's getting late. We also have more Cashapp notifications. We have Nathan E. for 25. Thank you, Nathan, for sending in. I don't know if there's messages attached to these. I'd have to look real quick to see. I don't want to miss any Super Chats, but it doesn't seem like we have any messages attached. But thank you to both of you for sending in the Cash App Super Chats as well. You guys want to bypass the thing, you can technically do that, but there's no message involved. But yeah, Dr. Oz, he was not leading the polls until October. He was barely up in the polls. The most accurate polls nationally had Fetterman up by, 4 to 6. Marist, Fox, you name it. And those are the same polls that show Trump winning Pennsylvania. And yeah, Biden has a very, very large war chest. But at a certain point, does him flooding the airwaves make a difference? Hillary Clinton flooded the airwaves like crazy to the point where it was just like, annoying. It wasn't moving the needle. Oh, Trump said this, Trump said that. Flooding the airwaves. Trump, I think, had like 1 or 2 ads that I even remember seeing back then. They were good ads, though, but he had like 1 or 2 ads, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for him. Timbo Slice's Rep 24-hour stream went. Probably never. I don't know if I could stay up for 24 hours. I probably wouldn't want to be tired during a stream, but I think that we could probably hit 10 hours plus on election night. Just depends on when they call it. Dustin Carner says, what legislatures do Republicans gain or lose this year? I think that they end up, probably you could say that they could make up some ground in Michigan, possibly Pennsylvania with Trump on the ticket. It's entirely possible. I don't know which ones they're going to be at risk of losing. So Republican liberal says Tuesday prediction. I think it's going to be a close race in Ohio. That's a whole nother thing. Bernie Moreno's gotten the Trump endorsement. Trump was, from what I've heard behind the scenes, he was supposed to rally in Arizona. But instead he went to Ohio because of the fact that he wanted to help out his candidate there. And he has worked around the clock trying to get him elected. He is the candidate who is probably the most in line with his agenda overall. But still, a lot of people say he has a bland personality, which is technically true. I think he would beat Sherrod Brown. Make no mistake about it. I don't think any Republican is losing when Trump's on the ticket. I don't think tying yourself at the hip to Trump, which isn't even what he's doing, but if you want to even say he's doing that, I think it's a good thing if Trump's on the ballot. If Trump's not on the ballot and your reason for people to get out and vote for you is I like Trump, it's not going to cut it in a lot of places. Obviously, safe states a little different. Campaign quality matters less, but still, I don't think he's going to lose if he's nominated. But, he's gotten the Trump endorsement, but he's lost the momentum. He's polling in the 20s. He's losing to Matt Dolan, who had been a rhino in the state Senate. His family oversaw the political correctness change from the Cleveland Indians to the Cleveland Guardians out of political correctness. The same guy goes on his website, says he wants to stop cancel culture. He can't even pick up the phone and get his and get his family to not cancel the name of an iconic baseball team, make a joke out of the whole situation. It's like, I really just don't want to see that guy win. Now, you look at the big picture. He has been campaigning aggressively on immigration, which is a good thing. It's a good thing to see him change his tune, but do I believe him? Is he actually being honest and genuine? Yeah, probably not. He wins the primary, he gets a chance. But you look at Moreno, is he all that strong of a candidate? In my opinion, his weakness comes from the fact that he just is bland. It's not that, he likes Trump. He's a MAGA candidate. Vance was a MAGA candidate, but he was a change of pace. Moreno, does he win? I mean, Trump's on the ballot. He might outperform the polls in the primary where he's losing just because of that. We have really yet to see what happens, but I really feel as if he's at risk of losing the primary. I do believe it. That is true. So let's see. Yada I Mean says, listening to Bongino, who said a buck and 5 more Republicans will resign in the House. Jeffries becomes Speaker and refuses to certify electors for Trump. It's possible. It's also unlikely. Marilyn Degatti 83 says, do you think the ban would pass this? And by the way, it's the new House that would dictate who certifies the electors. So if that's their plan, then it wouldn't work. But that's also why people need to vote Republican down ballot. Like, yes, if Dolan wins the nomination in Ohio, he needs our votes, plain and simple. You want to prevent him from winning in Ohio, you get out and vote for Moreno on Tuesday. Feel free to do that, obviously, but still. Maryland Degatti 83 says, do you think the ban would pass the Senate? If it passed the House, it could. We'll see. Chris Ignacio, thank you for the 2. Joe Schmo for 2 says, what's the motive behind Biden importing migrants? Well, it's power. It's more votes for the Democrats. It's more cultural erosion. It's more cheap labor. There's no element of the left, and especially the globalist left, that sees it as a downside to just leaving the border wide open. And honestly, they're incompetent, because if I was Biden day one, or the people around him, and my goal was to get him reelected, I would at least, I would actually try to keep Trump's border policy. I would try to, pass these more, thinned out spending bills and just like try to promote like social liberal policy, whatever. If I'm like in their shoes, if I'm trying to get Biden reelected, and then the approval rating is probably going to be higher than where it is now, Biden probably is in a very good position to win reelection. But they're incompetent to the point where They're destroying the country and then banking on people buying their lies for it to pay off. And even people who have soured on Trump still may not like Biden. They're not going to turn out for Biden either. So that's what it comes down to. And Biden's pissed off a lot of his own voter base as well. So I don't think what they've really done is that much of a positive strategy. Sam Madsen says Moreno has allowed Dolan to catch up to him in the polls because he's lazy. He can't continue that into the fall. I agree. And it's why he might go down, because think about it. Vance had an aggressive campaign. He had all the momentum, and he only got 32% with a Trump endorsement. Now, Moreno in Ohio, if he gets 32%, he loses. It's a three-way race. I mean, that's kind of an issue with him in and of himself. Now, do I think he's extreme on policy? Do I think that makes him a weak candidate? No, but your campaign quality does matter more so than anything else. Now, do I think you're going to see him lose to Brown? I don't think you're going to see that big of a ticket split, but is it an issue? Yeah, it's somewhat of an issue. If he's the nominee and he can't campaign very well, it can't continue into November, because that's going to cause the ticket splitting to be as high as it possibly could be, when instead you should have it be as low as it could be. Jake CB says, even though Biden is losing in the polls, are you concerned about his engagement metrics because of his true and feigned dementia causing memeability? Not really. I mean, any positives you saw about it was before he had a record. Now he's just at a point where nothing about him is positive. Nothing about him is memeable in a positive way. When you talk about the border, you talk about the economy, it's not fun and games anymore from that perspective. Based Alaskan says, I predict Hawaii shifts more right than any state. You probably wouldn't be wrong. Lover of Green says, how likely will the DNC try COOF 2.0? It'll mostly backfire, but never underestimate their desperation. If it weren't for bad polls, the Biden administration would absolutely go on lockdown again. I'm sure they would. But I don't think it's going to happen. They haven't even tried to fearmonger a lot about another instance of that. I'm not ruling it out. We got to be on watch for whatever they could pull. But do I think it's going to be exactly that? I think that they probably realize it wouldn't work anymore. So if they have like a 11th hour trick up their sleeve, it's going to be something entirely different. Dustin Carner says, state of the race in Montana and Ohio right now. I assume you're talking about the Senate races. How about Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona? All of those are winnable seats. Wisconsin, Baldwin is somewhat strong, but I mean, Hovde is a really likable candidate. I don't think that he's all that weak. If Trump wins Wisconsin, he has a shot. But Montana, I think he easily wins. Ohio, I think Brown goes down by a few points. I mean, he's overrated. These people vote with Biden 100% of the time in these states that are Republican by double digits at this point. It's not a winning recipe. It's not. And maybe you can skate on that when Biden's not on the ballot, but Biden's on the ballot. And if you're tied to Biden when Biden is on the ballot, your margin's going to be more in line with Biden's. You're not going to get as many crossover votes. Mountain Goddess for 10 says, okay, can you explain what happens to the rest of the donor money in a war chest when a candidate drops out? Nobody can ever explain this to me. Where does that money go? Well, in many cases, it will go to, you could give it to other campaigns. You could keep it for a future political run. I'm sure some candidates have found their roundabout ways of pocketing some of that money. But I think that it just largely just sits there because it can go to certain other campaigns, super PACs, you name it. Sean Romero says, will it be harder for Democrats to cheat because some of the red states have banned machine and drop boxes? Well, if they're red states, so it doesn't matter, to answer your question. Now, in terms of how you combat any possible irregularities, redacted, wrongdoing, we need trained poll watchers that know what they're doing. And if we have that, it's going to be a lot more likely that we're going to have more integrity. But they find roundabout ways to do other stuff, because then you see what happens. Oh, they don't have enough ballots. The lines are too long in Arizona. People go home. whatever. It's demoralization. They don't even have to lift a finger. They don't have to make a fake, ballot or whatever for them to get Republicans to stay home and for Democrats to be able to prevail. They don't have to do anything. So you're looking at their strategy. It's very clear what their strategy is. Let's see. Chris Ignacio says, please send red votes to Hawaii. Mahalo Shaka. I assume that's Hawaiian. I don't know what that means, for the record. The Sandwich Man says, at this point, I worry Moreno loses the general. If Dolan wins the primary, I'm okay with it. I'd rather have a Met Republican than no Republican. Well, I don't know if he loses the general, but is he all that strong? I don't think he's all that strong. I don't think he's all that weak. He's not like an electoral liability. He's just relatively generic and bland. He'd have a much better voting record than Dolan. He'd have a better voting record than LaRose. I'd vote for him, but I can't exactly say it would be like a super enthusiastic vote. He's not exciting. J.D. Vance, I was really passionate about his race because he was an exciting candidate. He was an America First candidate with a great story, and he went out there and he defeated a relatively strong candidate in Tim Ryan. A lot of Democrats actually thought they were going to win that race, and it backfired hilariously. So there was that. But yeah, I'm not worried about the general, but it could be an issue. You might have to spend more money there, which is a problem, more time there, which is a problem, and you don't want to do that at the rate things are going. Now, if he outperforms the polls in the primary, I'd be a lot more inclined to believe that, Trump will carry him over, and it's not that big of a deal. Base Cats, as you hear, the RNC hired Scott Presley. I assume you mean Scott Pressler. I did a video about the RNC shakeup, another video including that update today. So, we could talk about that, but of all this time, Republicans, what have I been saying? Register all these non-college educated white voters in the Midwest. You have millions of them. Do they do that? No, they don't do it. The math is on their side. The numbers are on their side. They don't go after it whatsoever. Now the RNC, they're closing down a lot of these outreach centers, which are in deep blue areas. They're not moving the needle. Republicans are gaining with black voters 1%, 2%. A lot of that doesn't have to do with any of those efforts, first of all. Second of all, you gain 1% to 2% of the white, non-college educated vote, you win the Rust Belt consistently. This is what it comes down to. And you have to get these people out and voting. So chase these ballots, get them out to vote, you win. That's end of discussion. Steven Kanizik says, Rep should try some Scott Pressler-style rocker hair. Come on, be MAGA rebellious. Yeah, I'd have to push back on that. First of all, I don't think the long hair is all that professional, in my opinion. Second of all, with my type of hair, I couldn't really pull off long hair in that regard unless I blew it dry straight, and it would take months for that to happen. So I'll have to decline the offer. But Timbo Slice says, the one meme I'll miss this election cycle is no Bernie Sanders once again asking us for our financial support. That is true. Is he even running for re-election? Or when is his bid up? Vermont 2024 Senate. I think, yeah, he would be up this cycle. He's not, or he filed paperwork. He didn't declare, but he filed paperwork. Okay. So for some reason, Bernie Sanders, who is, he's 82, he's going to be there till he's 89, most likely, because he's not losing that state. Vermont is Vermont. M says New York would be solid red if nobody left. Well, as more people are leaving, it's getting redder. So I don't know. It's weird. You see the same thing with California. A lot of people that are leaving California happen to be conservative, but the state is getting redder. And that is what I worry about the popular vote is, more people may be becoming Republican, but the geographic distribution. So maybe the R+5 with trends thing doesn't mean much anymore. That's why I'm focusing on state polls in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, which are looking good for Trump, but I'm saying we have work to do. Dustin Carner says, will Nevada swap Arizona for being a new red state in MT West. I don't know what that means. Mountain West, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of red states in the Mountain West. Idaho's in the Mountain West. Wyoming, Montana are technically in the Mountain West. But will Nevada become more red than Arizona? I believe it will. Possibly this cycle. This cycle, I think it does vote to the right of the state of Arizona. Anyways, guys, like up the stream. We're almost to 1,000 likes. Like the stream up. Let's get there. We're gonna hit it. We're gonna hit our total. We're almost there. Like the stream. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We're knocking on the door of 174,000 subscribers. We are almost to 175K, which I would love to hit on Tuesday. So make sure you guys like the stream. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you have not yet subscribed. We're at 930 likes. Let's get up to 1,000. We're almost there. Let's get there. And let's also get to 174,000 subscribers. I want to hit 200,000 this summer, and I don't know what we're going to hit by the election. Maybe get up there to a number that we didn't originally think was possible, but we'll see. Colin DeVos says, how big of a margin do you think Republicans can win or retake the House and Senate this November? I hope if Trump wins, we also retake majority, Trump 24. Well, I think there's a possibility they could gain a few seats in the House. Redistricting wasn't all that. And in terms of the Senate, I think they could get in the mid-50s, actually, if everything goes right. Now, is that guaranteed? No, I wouldn't predict it. I think 54 is like a high point. I think 53 is probably most likely because, yeah, you have a lot of competitive races. You know, I think they get Ohio, Montana, West Virginia. They hold every state they have. They hold Texas. They hold Florida. So, you know, they go out there and they probably end up picking up, Montana, Ohio. That's 52, including West Virginia, which is an auto flip now. And then they get Nevada. That's 53. Maybe they get Arizona or Michigan or Wisconsin. So I think 53 is probably the number I'd bet on right now. But it could be higher. It could be lower, too. So we'll see. Saga says, I'm almost convinced Dems run Whitmer in 28. I don't think she'd win a primary, honestly. She's kind of overrated. BB says, from Texas, Cruz will win by twice his 2016 or 2018 margin at least. I agree with that take. Close to that. If he doesn't get there, I think he wins by over 5. M says there's a lot of potential in Nevada, but the state GOP is incompetent and mushy. Well, they're getting better and more people are becoming Republicans, so that's a good thing. I mean, registration data, they might overtake Democrats by election day. Republicans in Arizona are gaining. We'll see how much of that had to do with the primary, but it's entirely possible. Arizona flips red, Georgia flips red, Nevada flips red. North Carolina, I think, holds. So at that point, you just need Wisconsin. But you need one Rust Belt state. You also need one out of the Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Because if you miss all those states, you're not going to win. Because you're not going to flip any other states at that point, more likely than not. So Ismael Campos says, could you shed some light on who's leading to make the final VP nomination for Trump? I can't because I don't even think Trump knows. Now, we hear people's names thrown around like Ben Carson, Lee Zeldin, Tulsi Gabbard, Elise Stefanik, Kristi Noem. I don't know who it's going to be. We got a long way to go. We'll see. We're probably going to get more intel, closer to summer than what we have right now. So there's that. Hopefully somebody that doesn't weigh down the ticket. That's what he needs to do. Just focus on doing what he's doing. Let the media throw a temper tantrum because he's calling illegal alien murderers animals, because that doesn't make the media look good to anybody who's actually paying attention. Because the people that are undecided and they hear that and they actually do their research or can see below the surface, they know it's complete BS. They know it's completely made up. They know it's completely bogus. Same thing with the whole bloodbath hoax. Like, that's a term people use all the time. People are using it to refer to the RNC takeover. A bloodbath can refer to just a quarrel, a stalemate, or an economic turmoil disaster as well. the fact that they're taking his words out of context and just shamelessly promoting it just proves they have no argument. It's not like Trump said anything during the speech that was bad. And the thing that they try to take out of context is when Trump says, we're going to deport illegal aliens, we're going to deport them all, we're going to do what Eisenhower did. So now they're taking it out of context and they're saying that Trump wants to round up the Latinos or whatever. And it's like, nobody buys this stuff. You're not doing well with Hispanic voters. It's partially why, Biden's going to be in a tough bind in Nevada and a tough bind in Arizona. Texas is off the table, partially because Biden is struggling energizing Hispanics. And, a decent portion of the third, fourth generation Hispanics are moving right, which is why they need to import new ones who are going to be voting left. I mean, you look at it. That's what it comes down to. That's all. That's all of it. So, Saga says, thoughts on a Zeldin-Youngkin ticket. I really like Zeldin as VP this year. Trump wants New York so bad. Personally, I see Zeldin in 28 and Ramaswamy Vance in 32. Well, you have two more establishment-friendly people on the ticket. I like both of them overall, but they are more establishment Republicans. They're just some of the better establishment Republicans. So, if one of them are VP, it's one thing, but I wouldn't vote for either in a Republican primary. And I don't think Zeldin has the it factor to be president. Maybe governor of New York is one thing, but president, I just can't see it. Youngkin, same thing. I think he'd stand a better chance, though, because he is likable genuinely, but I feel like there's other options who represent the base a lot better. Republican liberal says, one word for Arizona border, focus on that policy. Yeah, I know. Like I say, the economy is a winning issue for Trump. Immigration is the winning issue for Trump and everybody else. The reason why Matt Dolan might win on Tuesday is because he's actually been doing very good advertisements on immigration. So much so to the point where he's surging in a Republican primary despite the fact that he's kind of a rhino. So you're seeing that there. I'm sure that the establishment Republicans will be annoying and say, Trump's losing his grip on the GOP. And it's like, no, it's not that. It's just the fact that Moreno should be running away with this thing, and he's not. And he's gotten more establishment endorsements too, Republican Senate leadership, etc. But has that moved the needle? No. I'm proud of you for 5 says, do you think a socially right and economic left-leaning candidate can win an election? Depending on how left-leaning economically they are. Donald Trump on some things leans left. I think somebody like J.D. Vance and Josh Hawley are socially right but economic left. And do I think that that's a winning coalition, at least on some issues, I'm saying? They're probably center-right economically. They're just more populist. Yeah, I think those candidates probably are some of the more electable, nationally, one could even argue, in a presidential environment. It just depends how they pick their battles on both of those issues, both of those categories. Because Trump is socially right, but he's kind of a moderate on a lot of things. But when it comes down to the border, immigration, culture, American identity, you name it, one could say that he's very right-wing, which is why he is feared by the system, because he's not a globalist. He says, I'm a nationalist. You don't really see politicians say that. It's kind of become a dirty word, one could argue, but it shouldn't be a dirty word. You put your interests of your country first. You put your interests of the American people first, not the interests of the entire world. That's kind of what it comes down to. BB. So this is feeling way more like 2016 than 2020. That's true. I was anti-Trump after the midterms. Colorado trying to remove him from the ballot put me back on the train. I feel like a lot of people say that. Sam Madsen said, what caused LaRose to collapse so much? Well, honestly, kind of what caused DeSantis to collapse so much. He couldn't pick a lane of the party, and he picked some hills to die on that a lot of people just saw as a little bit of these futile efforts, like the issues, the referendums, which obviously, I would have voted that the way LaRose supported on them, either yes or no for whichever ones they were, because I think one was yes, that was the right-wing issue, one was no. But I don't know, him wasting a lot of political capital on that and having it blow up in his face probably was not the best move for him politically. Saga says, Rep, are you going to do a Blue Eagle video for April Fools? I am probably not. Maybe a tweet or something like last year when I said I was supporting DeSantis over Trump, which some DeSantis people actually ended up believing and sharing. But yeah, nope, wasn't real. But that was it. Last call for Super Chats, guys. We're an hour and a half into the show. If we have any more Super Chats, feel free to send them in. We also hit 1,000 likes. Still hit that like button if you guys have not hit the like button yet. And also make sure you guys do subscribe. We are probably 70 away from 174K. Don't really think we're going to hit it on the stream, but do hit that like button. Do hit that subscribe button as well. This will be the last call for Super Chats. We'll go for another minute. See if you guys have any more to send in. If not, that's completely fine. We'll be ending the show, but feel free to send in a Super Chat if you have one. And if you send them in too late, I might not read it. So now is probably the time to send it in really quickly. Or there is that disclaimer that it might not be read. So I'll look in regular chat while we wait. Let's see. Doesn't seem like there's much. People debating about Tulsi. We have Trump 2024. We have some trolls in chat that I presume are just trying to get a rise out of people. Trump Hall. Yeah, Hawley's running for re-election. He's not going to be taken out of the Senate. Let's see. Quick VP. I don't know. I can't give a VP prediction because it's probably going to be wrong. Might be somebody that nobody's thinking about. Nobody in March of 2016 thought Trump would pick Mike Pence to be his VP. So there you go. There's a lot of questions that people are asking. Who's he going to pick? Which kind of VP is he going to pick? These are good questions. I don't know the answer to any of them. Tulsi is very divisive in these circles. I don't know if she's going to be the best pick based off of that alone. But I think Haley would be the worst pick. I don't think he would ever come close to that. I don't think he has any interest in it. We're gaslit for months that he was going to pick Haley as VP. Never happened. Never happened whatsoever. But yeah, I would much rather trust Tulsi Gabbard, who's somebody that is at least been good on a few issues that are of high importance and was willing to buck her party on a good deal of them, than somebody like Haley, who's just a total all-out rhino neocon that would keep the base home for sure. Also, I don't think Ben Carson would be out of left field at all. You may have some legitimate questions about him as VP, like, is he the best debater? That's iffy. He got kind of destroyed in 2016 on the Republican debate stage a couple times because he's a little soft. He'd be very good in the role of VP, though. I really would like him in that position. He's also older, but I would be very enthusiastic to vote for that ticket. Ismael Campos says, do you have any thoughts on Brandon Herrera's campaign getting to a runoff in Texas's 23rd against Rhino Tony Gonzalez? I don't have much of a thought about it other than the fact it's a good thing, and I hope he wins the runoff. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we'll see. Apex Caliber says, did you see Jeremy Boring's tweet, what a simp? Maybe not. I don't know which one you're referring to, but I know that the Daily Wire I'd say 80% of the hosts were all in for DeSantis, and didn't work. They're at least now supporting Trump, which, even if I don't like some of them or have disagreements with people like Ben Shapiro, if you're going to be getting your audience of 5 million people out to vote for Trump, I'm not going to sit here and say it's a bad thing, because why would that be a bad thing? It doesn't mean he's going to be anywhere close to the inner circle of Trump's administration. That's what it comes down to. So, all right, guys, I think we're going to end it. It's been great. We had a great stream, but it's about to end. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you guys like this video, or like the stream down below, I should say. It's not a video. Technically, it's a stream. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss a future video or stream. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.